Guys, it's JC here. Sorry about the dark. There's a bit of a power issue here, so yeah. I'm doing this video. Okay, look, I know I haven't posted in a while. I think the last video I did was based on All Blacks Ireland. Prediction I did get wrong, and I'm not ashamed of that, but I've been busy lately, it's that time of year, and I'm going to touch on a few things on this video. First and foremost, biggest question is the All Black season. Personally, I think if you look at the circumstances, All Blacks had a pretty decent season. Okay, yeah, they lost 4 games, but it's a new coach, and with the new coach, they've also got a few new players. And they, you know what, I will say, one of the best players this whole year for me is Wallabies Sudden from the Kiwis, He had a great year. In my opinion, I know he's nominated for it, but he should be breakthrough player of the year. And look, and it's a South African speaking here. Okay. The All Blacks have recently suffered their 4th loss this year, but it's against France. And the French aren't a weak side at all. They are not a bad team, and they lost 29-30. And I believe that loss came from a bad judgment call from Barrett to go for points instead of the try. But look, you know what? What would anyone else do in that situation? You have to ask yourself. The All Blacks losses are Argentina, South Africa again, and France. 3 of those 4 losses, I would say, are acceptable. 2 losses against South Africa, the world champs, are at home, and the loss against France is in France as well. And the loss, look, Argentina's the only loss that I really scratched my head on, because, it was in the All Blacks' backyard. But you know what? It is what it is. Okay? And then the question you have to ask yourself is, if you look at the All Blacks' losses, all 4 of those losses, you have to ask, the question is, are they using the bench correctly? The bench is supposed to be your impact players, and I think England's sitting with the same issue. They don't really have an impact player. And the All Blacks, you know what? Give them the benefit of the doubt. As I said, a lot of their players are also young. I think the average age is that they selected for the French game is 24. Yes, they have experience, but the experienced players are few and far between in that regard, and you can't really fault the All Blacks for their losses that they took this year. But you have to ask, are they using their bench correctly? Are they using it in a way that it can cause impact, That's a question that I'm asking, as a rugby fan. Then we have to move on to England. England's failures to see a game through. Now, I'm not just talking about this end of year 2, I'm talking about England's losses, their 2 losses to the All Blacks in July, their loss to the All Blacks now, Australia, and this past weekend to South Africa. South Africa's loss, you can't say that England failed to see that game through. I mean, going into the last 10 minutes, we were ahead. But then you look at the losses against the Kiwis and the Wallabies, it was touch and go type of losses. And I mean, who thought England would lose to Australia after the rugby championship and after Australia's form recently? You thought that England would really lose there. And I mean, England were ahead going into that last minute. It was a mess. It was literally a mistake that cost English that game. Look, no excuses there. England should have should have won that game. I think they were up 12-0 at a stage. They were dominating the first few minutes. What went wrong there, I don't know. And I believe, personally, one of England's big failures is, and I'll say it again, George Ford is a great flower. Okay? So this whole thing that people say, Marcus Smith is irreplaceable, it's a crock of crap for me. I think George Ford is also a great flower. I think George Ford's experience is valuable. It can be valuable to this English team. Firstly, use George Ford there. Secondly, let go of Dan Cole and Joe Marler. The experience, you know what? Let the experience go. Blood new players over there. Give Steve Borthwick a chance to blood a couple of new players. England still have eight clubs, and you have Saracens and Leicester. So your player pool is quite big. Look to those clubs, and you'll find it. Yeah. I think the issues that England are facing, personally, I believe that it is fixable. I personally believe the Six Nations are going to be bloody interesting. All I think England really need is one big win. And then they'll gain confidence out of that. And the confidence that England gain from there, a confident English side, is a dangerous English side, in my opinion. And then you have Ireland, okay. Ireland's struggling at the moment. No two ways about it. Okay, look, they lost to the All Blacks and they struggled against Argentina. The question you really have to ask yourself here is it depth related, or is it just starting to show that they're missing Johnny Sexton at the moment? Okay. Give Ireland benefit of the doubt. The All Black, you know what? Their loss in the November internationals to the All Blacks, it's there's not much between the sides. One team has to lose, if you know what I mean. If Ireland won that game, people would be like, yeah, even despite their win being against Argentina, being quite unconvincing. The thing is, a great side, it's a sign of a great team to scrape out a victory. Think about that, And Argentina aren't a weak side, so you have to ask yourself, look, there are a couple of things questions that I'm asking myself about the Irish just like England, Ireland have a big player pool. You have Leicester, Munster, Ulster, and Connacht. Four decent sides that you can pick players from. So, I think Ireland need to start using the youngsters. Look, I don't know how true it is, but apparently Andy Farrell's ending his reign as Irish coach at the end of this season. Don't know how true that is. But if it's not true, my suggestion to him would be, you know what? Use this time, use this year, build a new team, start from scratch. You already have a good 23. Add to it, build depth, and that way you can win the World Cup or be successful in the 2027 World Cup. Going into 2023, you guys were great. Imagine how much better you can be going into 2027. Okay. Then we go to my home team, South Africa. I win against England. 29-20. Okay, yeah, we left a few points on the pitch and so on and such forth. I think both sides were a bit shaky. England did well. England looked better. Despite what the scoreline said, I think England looked a lot better than what they did the 2 previous weeks. And the Springboks looked quite unconvincing. I don't know if it's a long season or whatnot, but if it was just England were very desperate for a win, but we looked shaky. There were a couple of decisions that we made that had me scratching my head, I would say. Look, we scraped the win, and look, as I said, England aren't a bad team. They just need confidence, that's all. They just need a serious confidence boost, and you're not going to get that by a win over Japan, unfortunately. But with that being said, you're also not going to get the confidence by just losing like 1 point, 2 points, or whatever margin losses against stronger teams. You need a big win. And I feel for this English side. I do, because they deserve more than what they were dealt this year. They better than 4 losses in a row, in my opinion. Just saying. Okay. And people need to ask themselves, look, we lost 2 games this year against Ireland and Argentina. Question is, South Africa, the form team of 2024. I look at the success rate, look at our wins and our losses, and look at the teams that we played, I think that, look, it's a difficult question if you compare our losses to the All Blacks' losses as well. The Kiwis lost 4 games, but it was 2 games against us, a game against Argentina, 1 against France. And just for the record, the 2 games against us that the All Blacks lost could have gone either way. So, are South Africa the form team of 2024? I believe we are, I believe our success says that we are. But 2025 is going to be a bloody interesting year, particularly Six Nations wide. In my opinion, I think France are going to win the Six Nations this year. If I look at the form of the November internationals, France are going to win it. Okay? Then we have to look at the scrums as well. What I saw, the November internationals, All Black scrum are great. South Africa's scrum's great. I think next year, and if I'm not mistaken, the Rugby Championship next year, All Blacks host us for our 2 games against the All Blacks. It's going to be an interesting scrum battle, guys. That's why I say 2025 is going to be interesting. It depends on how you use your year, the season. I mean, if you get my drift over there, okay. France, I believe, are going to win the Six Nations. Now we have to look at the rise of the Wallabies. Okay. Now, if you look at where Australia were going into the November internationals, people thought there's no way Australia is going to beat England. People thought Wales may get a confidence booster with the win over the Wallabies. People were picking Scotland to beat Australia, and people thought Ireland are going to put 30 past the Wallabies. Because of Australia's form against South Africa, they lost both games against the Springboks. They won a game against Argentina, and they lost both their games against the All Blacks. I think the Wallabies' victories before now were against the Welsh before the Rugby Championship. Yeah. And then they got a severe surprise. I think their loss against Argentina was also a record defeat. So, good for Australia. The wins against England, good win. Gave Wales a hiding. I think it gives the Lions tour a new perspective, And speak of the Lions tour, there's a gap in the fixtures. I think the Melbourne Rebels were taken out of the fixture. So now the question is, who's going to fill that gap? I say, hear me out on this. Okay, I looked at the fixture list. You have a game against Argentina. Then you have the Lions have a game against Argentina. Then you have a couple of the regional sides. And then there's one game. It's an invitational with Australia and New Zealand. Just correct me if I'm wrong there. Go. You have the first test. Then after the first test, you have that gap. I think what would be interesting is you put that gap, you take players from New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia together to play the Lions for that match. And then add a fixture there as well. I think we should also have a Pacific nation, your Pacific Isles against the British and Irish Lions. I think that should do good for rugby. The thing is as well, what I believe is World Rugby needs to do something for the Tier 2 sides. That includes playing a Lions game or two for the Lions tour. Maybe maybe make a plan for over there. Maybe Bill Beaumont needs to make a plan there for them. And who wins the Six Nations? Okay, I already said. I believe it goes to France. I think the French are really on a rise here. People are mistaken to think that this year's Six Nations that Ireland won is something to read in. No, I think France are on a rise now. Yeah, they have Dupont back. And Dupont has proven this weekend that he can play halfback and fly off. Dupont is a great player. He's a maestro, magician. People can say what they want. He's a magician. Okay? Then we have to ask ourselves, Wales and England, the two coaches, what happens to them after this year's November internationals? Okay. Warren Gatland, let's face it. If you look at the RC and you look at the Welsh sides, Warren Gatland doesn't have much to choose from. The Welsh sides are poor, which ultimately depletes the depth of the Wales rugby team. Okay, and then if you look at England, okay. Now, please note, England are World Cup bronze medalists. Okay? The form that England's in. Look at England's losses, and then come and tell me that this is unacceptable. Okay? I'll tell you now. Okay, look, I'm not going to go and do research on the Six Nations. But I think England's form Their losses are against natural teams. I think England will build their confidence in the Six Nations. I just think Steve Borthwick needs a bit of a break. Give him a bit of a break. He is capable. He has proven that he's capable. And judge him on the form judge him on next year's form. Maybe do that. Also know that the finances, English rugby is financially, they're not in the best position at the moment, but that fixes itself. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section, and if you like my video, please do like it and subscribe to my channel, guys. Cheers.